Hello, we're going to be comparing my rejected art portfolio to RISD versus my accepted art portfolio to USC's Roski School of Art and Design. So first things first, I do not like to wear my hat backwards. The hat forward just like blocks like the frame, so I had to spin it back like a frisbee. During my senior year of high school, I actually applied to RISD and I got rejected. And then I applied to USC about 10 months later as an internal transfer and I got in. Period. Also for this video, I'm not going to be going over both my portfolios in depth because I already did that on my channel. So I just have some notes on what I did differently for each portfolio and I'm going to share that with y'all. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So I kind of lied. We are going to go over both portfolios super quick. A speed round, okay? I'm going to go over RISD's portfolio first. Mirror, mirror, look at her. Remember me. Trump's mutilation. Observational study. Crying faucet. Shoot my head. Figure studies that literally haunt me. Sketchbook pages. Television's just that interesting, huh? What a weird title. Blackberry Farm, Conformity, Somber, Walking My Octopus, and Series of Self. Now we're going to go on to USC Roski super quick. Fleeting Memory, Family Fun, Retrospective Vandalism, Homegrown, Foreign Smells, A Tiger's Fragile Fur, Trump's Mutilation, Drake's on Rubble, Home Part 2, If Only You Looked at Me with a Virgin Eye, Thanks to Me, and Time's Up. So now we're going to go into how I actually improved the portfolio itself, starting with the first tip, which is literally draw every day. Okay, when I got rejected, that lit a fire under my ass and I was like, oh shit, I need to draw way more. And so I literally got my sketchbook every single day and I just started doing concept sketches. I started drawing more faces. I started practicing shading. I did everything I could to improve my artwork, and in that short time frame I think I improved dramatically. And when comparing these two portfolios, I think it's pretty evident that I did work on my craft a lot. I think there are big signs of improvement between each of the pieces. For example, let's take the two charcoal pieces. I had this observational study, which looks pretty bad. The contrast isn't really there. The background looks very messy. The objects look like they're almost floating because their shadows aren't cast on the sheets properly. It just looks not great. But with Drake's on Rubble, I feel like I have a lot more midtones in there. My range of values is much larger. I have a bunch of different textures as well that you can kind of see on the duck. Do I think it's perfect? Absolutely not. But do I think that it was an improvement? For sure, I think so. Possibly, maybe. Along with my charcoal pieces, I feel like I improved my acrylic pieces as well. So let's compare Series of Self to Thanks to Me. Even though there are a bit of differences with technique and medium because this is oil and acrylic on canvas, I think the improvement in technique is pretty clear painting wise. For Series of Self, the acrylic is pretty messy. It was very cartoonish, and because of that it relied heavily on line work, and I don't think my line work was great. And the techniques I used for shading each face were actually different. Each face had a slight difference in shading, which made the piece kind of feel, I think, fragmented in some sense. However, thanks to me, the line work was much better. It did not feel like any of the objects were really floating in space despite it being flat because of the cartoon style. I feel like all the objects and the composition worked really well together. I think this composition isn't terrible, but this one is a lot more pleasing to the eye, I feel like. Concept-wise, this is much stronger, which brings me to my next point, concept. I would say concept is arguably the most important thing in your portfolio because as an artist, you're trying to communicate your perspective, your ideas, and participate in conversations through your art. Because if you're just regurgitating the same information or just delivering it in the same way as other people have, it doesn't feel new, it doesn't feel fresh. So when you're developing ideas for portfolio pieces, work on those concept sketches, y'all. It is extremely important. For my RISD portfolio, I don't remember doing a single concept sketch or thumbnail sketch for any of my pieces. Like maybe Look at Her and Mirror Mirror, but for the other pieces, it was just me going on a blank page and not really having much thought behind it. However, for my Roski portfolio, I did concept sketches for every single piece, multiple concept sketches, thumbnail sketches of finding the right compositions of pieces. Just thinking about the art piece more and more is super important because it means you spend more time with the art and kind of know it better. You build a relationship with it and you kind of nurture it as you go along, like a little baby, like a little Grinch baby. If it's bad or good. Where was I going with this? Also, funny enough, an art lecturer actually saw both my RISD and USC portfolio and they left this comment. From an art lecturer's perspective, I'm surprised you kept the Trump piece from last time, as I think it was the least secure piece with a concept that wasn't really thought out. And their comment kind of echoes what I've kind of been talking about, was that concept is super important in your portfolio pieces. And to kind of address that comment like on a YouTube video, I have no idea why I kept Trump's mutilation in both of my portfolios, because I don't think it's that strong. I totally agree with them. And I think the only reason why I put that piece in was to fill out space with the portfolio, because I needed 10 to 15 pieces and I only had 12. And I thought that 13 would be a good number to have since it's right in the middle. And so I just threw this piece in there without really thinking too much about it. Again, not putting too much thought into things. And also USC wanted all of the art in the portfolio to be done within the past 2 years. And for the RISD portfolio, a lot of the pieces were done way before then, and so I just threw this one in. I cannot tell you why. I cannot tell you why, honestly. The second thing that made me improve was my caption. My captions popped off the second portfolio. The first portfolio, they were a bit rough. Let me tell you that. Half my pieces actually did not have captions at all. Yikes. And the pieces with captions were 1, not in-depth enough, 2, did not really describe like the techniques and process behind it, and 3, were really short. When you're given a word maximum for captions, try to fill a substantial percentage of that, because even though the art obviously should speak for itself, having the ability to explain the process, a story, or experience that goes along with the piece may be a great supplement to the artwork. Because this piece was repeated for both portfolios, I'm just gonna read the captions to see how I improved it. This is the first one. This piece was my response to President Trump's inhumane immigration policies for migrants at border and divisive policies over the course of his time in office. The mute sign I spray painted on top Trump's disgruntled face was inspired by the anonymous American spray painted Trump's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That literally did not make sense grammatically. And this is the second version. This piece was inspired by the street artist Pobo spray painting Donald Trump's Hollywood star after the 2016 election. Throughout Trump's presidency, he consistently dehumanized migrants at the border and called for the inhumane separation of children and their families. I felt my role as an artist was to create a piece providing social commentary on his inhumane immigration policies and racist ideologies. I also highlighted how Trump has brought dishonor to America by further vandalizing American symbols behind him. Much better. And I think another defining factor in this was I downloaded Grammarly after the RISD portfolio. Grammarly really saved my butt here a couple times. So that is a great segue into our sponsor for today, which is actually Grammarly. No, they're not. The next tip I have is for if you don't have enough portfolio pieces, you can just reinvent them. You might be wondering, what does that even mean? Does that even count as a second piece? I don't know if it counts as more pieces, but I said it did, so I don't know. It was a month before Roski's deadline, and I was like, oh my god, I only have 9 pieces. I need 10 to 15. And so I was like, oh shit. And so then I just reinvented 3 of my pieces. I literally reinvented 3 of them. Okay, so we're gonna go over the first one I reinvented. It went from family fun to retrospective vandalism, and then I made those 2 separate things, and I wrote 2 different things for that, okay? The other thing I reinvented was this observational sketch. At first it was just supposed to be an observational pen study, but then I was like, oh my god, like I should spice it up a bit. So I added some color into it. And then I looked at it again and I'm like, no thanks. Like I need something more. I need to beef it up a bit, make it different, make it fun. And so then I made a paper sculpture out of it that was 3-dimensional. And the last piece I reinvented was oil and acrylic on canvas. It was actually just the self-portrait, but it was kind of shit before I added the red stuff on top. And so I did that, period, point blank. Spice it up a bit, add a little bit of, what are some spices? Cumin? Add a bit of cumin on there. Cinnamon, is that a spice? I just looked up the top 5 spices and they're both on there, so period. I spice it up a bit. The last tip I have seems a bit counterintuitive. Seems a bit ironic, seems a bit misleading. It's don't watch fucking portfolio. Don't listen to everything you hear in portfolio videos because it may screw you up, okay? Your portfolio should be your own portfolio. Play to your strengths. Do what you gotta do to get into the school. Put your best foot forward. Do not feel pressured by other people to put in random pieces because what works for other people may not work for you. Because of YouTube, I thought I absolutely needed figure studies in my portfolio. And it's 2 days before the deadline. And I was like, you know what? Like, I've never done figure studies, but like, let me try do one and I'll just put it in. So I put in this figure study and it was god awful. And it was the most embarrassing I made thus far, and it was purely because people on YouTube told me to do figure studies. Figure studies can be important, sure, especially for animation. If you're an animator, you need to have figure studies. But if you're just going in for like an art major, if you're not even going to go in for fine arts necessarily, because I went with the BA in art, you don't need figure studies. You really don't. And if it's gonna bring down the level of your portfolio, then just don't include it, you know? In art school, you already take so many figure drawing classes and whatever and whatnot, so you'll probably just end up practicing there. But that's coming from a really biased perspective because it literally shattered my portfolio on top of everything else that was bad about it. So that is how I went from a rejected portfolio to an accepted one. We love to see it, the improvement. And yeah, I hope this video was helpful. It may not have been. I know I'm pretty sarcastic in these videos. If not, you guys gotta see 2 portfolios in one video. How fun. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked the video, like the video. If you have a fun comment down below or want to give me tips too, because I'm always looking forward to growing as an artist as well, leave some advice for me in the comments. If you have any questions, I always respond because it's a small little community here. And if you like my content or me as a person, possibly, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. I do not wear my hat backwards usually. This is an anomaly, an outlier situation. And yeah, I think that's it for the video, y'all. That is it for the video.